Hi, Pastor Nathan Decker with your hashtag Better Together devotion for today. So, one of the questions that I think every parent who has more than one child eventually gets asked is, Mom, Dad, who's your favorite? You can tell me, just between you and me, who's your favorite? And of course, parents don't have, or we shouldn't have favorites. I hope that Abraham and Isaac and the other folks in Genesis teach us that we shouldn't have favorites. It leads to really messed up families. But God does have favorites. And the idea of who God chooses is so appalling to us that we don't talk about it enough. God has a bias towards the lowest and the least of these. God has a bias to last place. If we were to take God to the racetrack, we could not follow his bet because he would always bet on the horse that's going to come in last. If we were to go with Jesus into and he was going to be our team captain, and we're on the playground and he's going to help us pick our team, we don't need to listen to him because he's going to pick the ones who normally would get picked last. This is God's bias. God's favorites are always the ones in last place. And we see this in the story of David and Goliath and God and me, in that David is not the firstborn son. David is not even the secondborn son. David is not the thirdborn son. David is the opposite, if you will, of Saul, who's currently the king in the story. King Saul was a firstborn son, and he was strong and handsome and good looking, and the one that everybody said in high school was going to succeed, the one that everybody knew was going to have the homecoming queen. That was King Saul, not King David. King David was the least of these. He was the last son. When Samuel goes to Jesse's house, he even has to tell Jesse after he looks at all of his sons, don't you have any more sons? Yeah, we got one more. It's the runt of the litter. He's out there watching the sheep now, but you don't want him. But that's exactly who God picks. God's favorites are the ones who come in last place, the losers, the folks that no one's going to pay attention to in high school, the folks who don't get most likely to succeed, the folks who, whenever you look back in the yearbook, you struggle to find those cameo shots. God chooses the ones that no one else would choose, and God uses them over and over and over again to be an impact in the world, to change the world, even to fight giants. When we start realizing that God's radical inclusivity turns the world upside down, and that God's favorites are not going to be the best and the brightest, but rather are going to be the least and sometimes the less likely, we'll find that we'll live in a world that we look at things differently. We'll find that we look at a world that's kingdom visioned and kingdom minded. We'll find that we are better together. Amen.